Welcome to the top stories of 2025. I'm Tom Llamas, coming to you from Times Square in the heart of New York City. This is the home of the iconic ball drop, as you know, where every December 31st, we say goodbye to the old year and ring in the year ahead. For the next hour, we're going to look back at the top 10 stories of what has been a remarkable year, full of major events and unexpected headlines. We begin with a look back at the year that was.
It is a grim New Year's morning here to begin 2025.
The guy in the pickup truck just punched the gas and mowed over the barricade, and there were just bodies.
This area of Altadena has become a wasteland.
This is like a hurricane in the middle of a brush fire.
I never thought I would live through something like this.
Crash. This is alert 3.
An American Airlines regional jet colliding with an Army Black Hawk helicopter.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear. The golden age of America begins right now.
Just hours into his new term, President Trump delivering on some of the dramatic changes he promised.
The Eagles getting redemption.
We love this city. Go Birds!
This was more about the messages that Kendrick wanted to send rather than having a mass appeal music moment.
Music's biggest night was all about Beyonce.
Our plane crashed.
Miraculously, officials say that all passengers and crew are accounted for.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III.
That contentious meeting between President Trump and Vladimir Zelensky unraveling in the Oval Office.
And splashdown, Crew 9 back on Earth.
The astronauts, known around the world as Butch and Sunny, finally back home.
Oh my God.
A dangerous and deadly outbreak of tornadoes ripped through 11 states.
You put your life into a place and it's destroyed in just a matter of minutes.
My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day.
President Trump today taking aim at friends and foes, announcing sweeping new reciprocal tariffs.
Chicken jockey.
The Minecraft movie pulling in at nearly $163 million on opening weekend.
The S&P 500 plunging 10% in 2 days.
Pope Francis has died.
The new pope has been elected on the second day of the conclave. And there he is, Pope Leo.
Did you think you would see an American
Never.
in your lifetime?
No, absolutely not.
Elon Musk is saying goodbye to Washington.
Elon is my friend, and he's done a fantastic job. I'm very disappointed in Elon. I've helped Elon a lot.
The blowing up bromance.
I'm not thinking about Elon. You know, I just wish him well.
Israel launching what it's calling a preemptive strike on Iran's nuclear program.
Air raid sirens sounding in Israel as the Iron Dome appears to intercept new strikes from Iran.
We begin tonight with growing tensions over mass deportations in Los Angeles.
We will liberate Los Angeles.
Hundreds of National Guard troops now on the ground.
Happy birthday, soldiers. We're proud of you. And happy birthday, Mr. President.
Hundreds of thousands of people took to the streets across the country for so-called No Kings demonstrations.
We looked outside and we just saw like an ocean out there.
There's people in it. Oh my God, there's so many people in it.
So many people were in their beds, fast asleep, when the floodwaters began to rapidly rise.
It didn't look like Camp Mystic anymore.
Sean Diddy Combs sinking to his knees in the courtroom.
The jury finding him not guilty of racketeering and sex trafficking.
Oh, look at these people.
Call it a kiss cam catastrophe. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce's widely followed fairy tale is entering its next chapter.
I'm just struck by that shot of Vladimir Putin in the backseat of the vehicle of the Beast alongside Donald Trump smiling and laughing.
Thank you very much for your efforts, personal efforts to stop killings and stop this war.
The world's top food security watchdog declaring a famine in Gaza's largest city.
We have a lot of drugs pouring into our country, coming in for a long time, and these came out of Venezuela. We took it out.
Shots were fired at an event with the conservative activist Charlie Kirk.
After a manhunt that lasted just 33 hours, police say they've caught the suspect who assassinated conservative activist Charlie Kirk.
I forgive him.
Jimmy Kimmel Live will be preempted indefinitely.
When free speech is under attack, what do we do? Stand up like that.
That a government threat to silence a comedian the president doesn't like is anti-American.
Day 1 into a partial federal government shutdown. Day 15.
Day 26. Melissa's going to track across Jamaica. We're talking about catastrophic winds and flooding.
But we are still experiencing those strong tropical force storm winds.
We don't have anything, everything washed out. We don't have any clothes for the baby. Everything gone, roof gone, hose gone.
After 738 days, 20 Israelis are finally back home.
This is the historic dawn of a new Middle East.
Year to date, the S&P 500 is still up over 12%.
Angelino's basking in the glory of back-to-back World Series titles.
I'm ready to get another ring.
Welcome to NBC's special coverage of election night. This is a big night for Democrats.
I just want to congratulate. I think you're going to have, hopefully, a really great mayor.
You're the only friend I ever had. And I've had so many friends.
And then turn into Wicked Witch.
After 43 days, the government shutdown is now officially over.
A suspect opened fire on National Guard troops near a busy metro station.
It is a showdown worthy of a Hollywood thriller. Just when it looked like Netflix was going to buy Warner Brothers for a whopping $83 billion, Paramount Skydance attempting a hostile takeover.
We've just seized a tanker on the coast of Venezuela.
An elite Coast Guard team rappelling out of helicopters onto the deck of an oil tanker off the Venezuelan coast.
We are coming on the air with breaking news. A shooting at Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island.
We are coming on the air with that horrific Hanukkah attack overseas. 15 people dead, killed by a father and son targeting Jewish people.
There is still very much the shock at the sudden loss of both Reiner and his wife, Michelle.
Our countdown of the top 10 stories of 2025 begins with a space odyssey, the return to Earth of astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams. Their landing was just one moment in an incredible year in space exploration. And next year, we shoot for the moon. Here's Tom Costello.
We have liftoff. Go Super Heavy. Go Starship.
October 13th, a Starship mega rocket roars off a launch pad in Texas.
Vehicles pitching downrange.
2025 brought both success and stumbles, with several SpaceX Starship test flights exploding mid-flight. But NASA needs Starship to one day carry Artemis 3 astronauts to a lunar landing. Before that can happen, however, Artemis 2 will launch in 2026.
Victor, Christina, Jeremy, we're going to the moon.
Commander Reed Weissman, pilot Victor Glover, mission specialist Christina Cook, and Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hansen. A 10-day mission taking the crew further from Earth than any human has ever traveled, and a close flyby of the other side of the moon.
We hope it's not the dark side. We hope it's the lit far side, because that could mean that we could see parts of the moon that never have had human eyes lay upon them before.
They will be the first astronauts to travel so close to the moon since Apollo 17 in 1972. Meanwhile, for two astronauts whose 10-day mission to the space station lasted nearly 10 months.
And splashdown, Crew 9 back on Earth.
2025 brought a much-anticipated homecoming for Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams. What's it like to be home?
Wonderful.
Awesome.
It's amazing.
But as NASA sets its sights on a lunar landing within 3 years, America has competition. China plans to land its own astronauts on the moon by 2030. Now, a new space race. Whoever gets there first, the moon could be a springboard to Mars. And new astronaut Anna Menon can't wait.
I can hardly believe it myself. You know, what a time in human spaceflight that is even possible.
Tom Costello, NBC News, Washington.
I'm Molly Hunter in Castel Gandolfo, just outside of Rome. Our next top story is the election of an American pope, something many Vatican watchers thought would take a miracle to happen.
It's the moment the world's 1.4 billion Catholics have been waiting and praying for.
Oh!
About an hour later, American Cardinal Bob Prevost appeared on the loggia.
La pace sia con tutti voi.
Now Pope Leo XIV.
To find out that he's a Chicagoan as well, I could not believe it. That was something we were always told could never happen. There could never be an American pope.
An Augustinian who spent decades as a missionary in Peru, before that a Villanova grad born and bred on the south side of Chicago. And those who know him well say he's adjusted quickly to the Vatican.
He seemed to hit the ground running. It looks like he was, came out of central casting, made for the job.
In the same spirit as his predecessor Francis, Leo has spoken out about immigration.
I think we have to look for ways of treating people humanely, treating people with the dignity that they have.
And repeatedly called for a ceasefire in Ukraine. He's met with Ukrainian President Zelensky 3 times since his election. And back in November, we had the chance to ask Leo a question.
Do you have a Thanksgiving message? Is there something you're thankful for?
To recognize that we all have received so many gifts. First and foremost, the gift of life, the gift of faith, the gift of the unity, to encourage all people to try and promote peace and harmony.
The first American pope spent the holiday traveling on his first international trip. In Turkey, he marked an important historical meeting for the church, visiting the famed Blue Mosque in Istanbul. Then, honoring a promise made by his predecessor Francis, he traveled to Lebanon, where he celebrated Mass on the Beirut waterfront for a crowd of 150,000. Quite the send-off for the new pontiff, who chatted with reporters on the way home.
Just a year or two ago, I too thought about retiring someday.
But instead, celebrating Christmas at the Vatican, his first as the leader of the Roman Catholic Church. Molly Hunter, NBC News.
Turning now to the year in business. Wall Street reached new highs, but it was a mixed story on Main Street with lingering concerns about affordability. Perhaps the defining business story was President Trump's trade agenda. Here's Brian Chung with a look at how the 2025 economy was transformed by Trump's tariffs.
The biggest economic story this year was just one word: tariffs. April 2nd, the day that this board right here upended the modern trade system, imposing a baseline tariff on nearly all imports, with extra levies on these countries big and small, from China to Sri Lanka. Businesses were left confused as Ford, Walmart, and Adidas were among the companies saying they'd have no choice but to raise prices. It was the beginning of months of tariff whiplash. Tariffs on countries, tariffs on industries, tariffs announced, and tariffs postponed. Inflation worried consumers unsure about where prices were heading. The tariffs threatened price increases on nearly everything, from coffee from Brazil to clothing from Vietnam. Even cheese from the European Union all got more expensive for American importers to bring here. Your Shein and Temu orders from China? Also tariffed. Now, through the uncertainty, the Federal Reserve cut interest rates 3 times as policymakers fretted over an economic slowdown that could lift unemployment. Wall Street going for a ride through it all, cratering after Liberation Day, but recovering in the months that followed as the administration backed off of some of the tariffs, like in November when over 200 food items got exemptions. Now, the market also getting a boost from artificial intelligence. AI-generated videos taking over social media this year, showing just how far the tech has come. And chipmaker NVIDIA became the symbol of the AI investment boom, becoming the first company to cross the $5 trillion mark. But that excitement on Wall Street not crossing over to Main Street, where major employers like Amazon, UPS, and Target said they make big trims to their headcounts, part of the over 1 million announced job cuts this year. Now, as families grapple with affordability, spending was still strong, with shoppers spending a record $44 billion online this Black Friday and Cyber Monday weekend, perhaps on toys like, yes, Labubus, those viral dolls from Chinese company Pop Mart, celebrities from Blackpink's Lisa to Rihanna and Naomi Osaka fueling a worldwide obsession. Consumers finding joy in the smaller things in what was a big year for the economy.
Up next, our colleagues at Dateline bring us the biggest crime stories of the year. And later, a look at the trends that define pop culture in 2025. In 2025, a series of high-profile criminal trials riveted many, with dramatic twists and turns as these cases unfolded. Dateline's Andrea Canning has a look back at the year in crime and justice.
The Menendez brothers now eligible for parole.
Big day in court for Luigi Mangione.
The Gilgo Beach murders on
In 2025, we reported on some of the most high-profile crimes across the country. One of the biggest cases, the murders of college students Maddie Mogan, Kaylee Gonzalez, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin in Idaho. Post-grad criminology student Brian Kohberger was arrested for the murders in December 2022 and faced the death penalty. In July this year, he made a plea deal and admitted to killing the students.
You took our children.
The students' families and friends faced Kohberger at his sentencing hearing.
He is a hollow vessel, something less than human. A body without empathy, without remorse.
Kohberger got 4 life sentences and will spend the rest of his life behind bars. This year also marked the federal trial of music mogul Sean Diddy Combs, charged with racketeering conspiracy and coercing women into sex. At the center of the case, singer Cassie Ventura, Combs' former girlfriend. What was the relationship like between Cassie and Sean?
It started off pretty normal.
Combs' former personal assistant, Capricorn Clark.
But over time, it got increasingly more toxic.
In court, prosecutors said this security camera video showing Combs beating Cassie in a Los Angeles hotel hallway in 2016 was evidence of his coercion. Combs' attorneys argued it showed an out-of-control lovers' quarrel, an assault from years ago, not a federal crime. They said there wasn't any evidence of racketeering.
In the matter of U.S. versus Combs, count 1, not guilty.
Combs was found not guilty of racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking, but was found guilty of transporting sex workers across state lines. His sentence, more than 4 years in prison and a $500,000 fine.
She said, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him.
Another case that riveted the country this year, the second murder trial of Massachusetts woman Karen Reed. Prosecutors again accused her of backing her SUV into her Boston police officer boyfriend, John O'Keefe, in a drunken rage, leaving him to die in a freezing nor'easter. Reed denied hitting O'Keefe. She told Dateline she dropped him off at a late-night house party with other members of law enforcement, their family and friends, watching as he began to enter the house.
And then I waited for him to reemerge, which I assumed was going to be in moments. He didn't come back, and it pissed me off.
But investigators found pieces of Karen Reed's taillight near O'Keefe's body, and a cell phone expert testified O'Keefe's phone never went into the party house.
The battery temperature data never indicates that the device went from a cold environment to a warm environment.
A defense expert testified if Reed's Lexus had struck O'Keefe as the prosecution alleged, it would have caused more serious injuries.
There was no trauma, there were no fractures.
The jury found Reed not guilty of the most serious charges, murder and leaving the scene of an accident resulting in death, but did find her guilty of a lesser charge, DUI, and the judge sentenced her to a year of probation.
I could not be standing here without these amazing supporters.
John O'Keefe's family is pursuing a wrongful death lawsuit against Reed. And Reed filed her own lawsuit against Massachusetts police and those in the party house, accusing them of framing her. So the Karen Reed saga will continue into 2026. For Dateline, this is Andrea Canning.
This January, we saw not one but 2 deadly and disturbing incidents in major American cities. In our nation's capital, a mid-air collision of a commercial airliner and an Army helicopter. The other, an attack in New Orleans just hours into the new year. I was on the ground shortly after that terror attack on Bourbon Street. This was the moment a high-speed terror attack paralyzed the city of New Orleans just hours after ringing in the new year.
We got a white Ford. I need EMS. I can now in Bourbon now.
People celebrating on Bourbon Street, scrambling to dodge that white pickup truck. The FBI says was driven by 42-year-old Texas-born Shamsuddin Jabbar, who had claimed to be inspired by ISIS. He died after crashing into a crane and getting into a shootout with police. This photo showing the truck and a black wheelchair belonging to Jeremy Sensky, who was knocked down to the ground.
Cops were looking at me, and I know at this time that they were looking at me because I was still alive, and they weren't worried. They knew I was still alive, so I'm screaming, and finally somebody came over to me and just looked at me and said, "Listen, we know you're hurt, but you're alive."
He was then taken to the hospital. His legs broken.
I'm not against anybody like that. I love everybody. I love everybody, and I just can't believe that would happen.
The attention quickly shifted to city officials who faced criticism over their anti-vehicle barriers, some that weren't in place and others that were simply not working that night, pushing officials to quickly come up with new safety measures.
They've now added this hydraulic steel ramp, which will prevent vehicles from getting onto Bourbon Street. They've also added these barriers to the sidewalk.
She was a loving, caring person. She loved her son.
I spoke with Jessica Carbesha. She was mourning her sister, Nicole Perez, one of the 14 people who were killed in the attack. Perez was just 27, leaving behind her 5-year-old son, Melvin.
Do you remember the last thing you guys said to each other by any chance?
She texted me at 12 o'clock at night telling me, "Happy New Year, sis. I love you so much." And I told her I love you too. And I didn't know that was going to be her last text message.
New Orleans defines strength and resilience. This city, as people get back up, that's the spirit of America as well.
January 29th, 2025, the deadliest U.S. aviation crash in 24 years, as a U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter collided midair with an American Airlines regional jet preparing to land at Reagan National Airport. Both aircraft plunging into the Potomac, killing all 67 people.
It's a tremendous loss. It's a whole branch of our family tree that's been cut.
On board, members of the U.S. figure skating team, including coaches Evgeny Shishkova and Vadim Naumov, their son Max on Today.
They were beautiful people. They were so incredibly kind. I don't have the strength or the passion or the drive or the dedication of one person anymore. It's 3 people.
Doug Lane lost his wife Christine and 16-year-old son Spencer, who spent his last week at a training camp doing what he loved.
He was with some of his best friends in the world. He was with his coaches, all 3 of them. He was with his mom and doing, just absolutely in his element.
Just be advised, conducting first lift.
The crash set off a year-long federal investigation that quickly revealed multiple contributing factors. The NTSB determined the chopper was flying too high. At a series of federal hearings, Army aviation experts testified that the altimeter for the Black Hawk's altitude reading was often inaccurate, yet the military says the pilots were never officially told.
How much tolerance should we have for aviation safety whenever civilian lives are at risk?
Because it was on a secret nighttime training mission, the chopper's precise GPS location transmitter, called ADSB, was turned off, according to the FAA and NTSB. Meanwhile, the FAA dramatically cut helicopter traffic around Reagan Airport and ordered new helicopter routes to limit potential conflicts with commercial planes. The tragedy also revealed the shortage of air traffic controllers nationwide. Just a single controller was juggling both plane and helicopter traffic that night. A final NTSB report due out in the new year, but in the meantime, the United States government has now accepted responsibility in a court filing that failures by the air traffic controllers and those military pilots led to the deaths of 67 people. And now the families of those people are eligible for compensation under U.S. law. Tom Costello, NBC News at Reagan National.
Our countdown of the top stories of 2025 continues after the break, including the cultural phenomenons that brought us a little closer together. A golden song, a swift engagement, and a Bad Bunny bonanza. 2025 delivered some memorable moments. How many moments? Some may say 6, 7. Here's Joe Fryer with a look back at pop culture in 2025.
It was a good year.
to be Bad Bunny.
You're fired.
Fired? The rapper dominated the charts while giving Puerto Rico a boost with his historic residency. Taylor ended her record-breaking tour, then swiftly launched a new era.
This is my brand new album.
Her 12th album, and weeks later her engagement, the Kansas City Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce.
Slime Cube!
On the big screen, a movie inspired by a video game ruled the box office, while K-pop Demon Hunters became the most streamed movie ever on Netflix, powered by an infectious soundtrack featuring the song Golden. Also golden, Anora winning the Oscar for Best Picture.
Welcome to the pit. Let's go save some lives.
Freshman TV shows The Pit and The Studio.
Everyone wants something from me and I can't give it to them.
Both victorious at the Emmys.
Cowboy Carter.
And Beyonce, who won 3 Grammys, finally taking home the trophy for Album of the Year.
I just want to encourage people to do what they're passionate about.
With that, the world finally made sense until it didn't. The inexplicable 6'7" trend took over social media, and this kiss cam moment from a Coldplay concert became an overnight sensation. Late night TV was rocked by 2 earthquakes. CBS canceled Late Night with Stephen Colbert. Then ABC briefly suspended Jimmy Kimmel for comments made after the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk.
The MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them.
For another late night staple, it was a year of celebration.
Live from New York, it's Saturday night.
Saturday Night Live marked 50 years with a star-studded special.
I eat 4-cheese lasagna.
Also celebrating half a century, Jaws. While Peanuts turned 75, and the Radio City Rockettes high-kicked their way to 100. On the diamond, the LA Dodgers repeated as world champs, and the Eagles flew to a Super Bowl win. Green on the gridiron and in the theater.
I'm off to see the wizard.
The final chapter of Wicked from our sister company Universal Pictures gave fans something to sing about for good. Joe Fryer, NBC News.
2025 ended with another major headline. Here now is our next story in the countdown.
I'm Chloe Malas. Hollywood is still reeling from the shocking death of director and actor Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle Singer, who were killed on December 14th. While the legal case is expected to proceed well into 2026, what is clear is beyond the heartbreak, Reiner leaves behind an unparalleled legacy of beloved films.
For 6 decades, Rob Reiner's legendary body of work dazzled Hollywood. Reiner rose to stardom on television's All in the Family.
You are a meathead.
And as a director, he created some of Hollywood's most memorable and beloved films.
You can die too, for all I care. Oh.
As you wish.
Popular classics like Stand By Me. The Oscar-nominated A Few Good Men.
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
And perhaps the ultimate rom-com, When Harry Met Sally.
I came here tonight because when you realize you want to spend the rest of your life with somebody, you want the rest of your life to start as soon as possible.
Reiner said meeting his wife Michelle inspired him to change the ending, leading to that famous New Year's scene. Rob Reiner, a Hollywood legend, whose legacy will endure for years to come. Chloe Malas, NBC News.
Up next, we're counting down to the top story of the year. Stay with us. We continue now with our countdown of the top 10 stories of 2025. This year started with an Israeli-Hamas ceasefire that fell apart in a matter of weeks, but it is ending with a truce that appears to be holding. Some are hopeful that the current ceasefire could bring a more lasting peace. But as our Richard Engel explains, nothing is certain.
2025 was marked by conflict, truces that rarely lived up to their names, and a profound expansion of Israeli force across the Middle East. In January, The Trump and outgoing Biden administrations, Qatar and Egypt, brokered a ceasefire and hostage deal between Hamas and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to end the war Israel launched after Hamas's October 7th massacre. Hostages were released from Gaza, and Gazans began to celebrate. But it didn't hold. In March, Israel resumed large-scale military operations, and aid agencies warned a man-made famine in Gaza was spreading. The war had also expanded. After years of threats, in June, Israel launched what it described as preemptive attacks on Iran's nuclear program, triggering 12 days of direct conflict. Iran retaliated, firing missiles into Israel.
This is right over the center of downtown Tel Aviv. This is the most intense barrage we've seen today.
Most of them shot down, but a few did get through. President Trump joined Israel's side, launching massive strikes targeting Iran's nuclear sites and security services. But Prime Minister Netanyahu may have overplayed his hand. In September, he authorized a controversial strike on Hamas's political office in Qatar. Trump was furious and soon personally pushed forward a new peace deal, forcing Netanyahu and Hamas into a ceasefire.
At long last, we have peace in the Middle East, and it's a very simple expression, peace in the Middle East.
Veteran Israeli-American negotiator Gershon Baskin, directly involved in the talks, said Trump didn't just push the deal, he imposed it.
Do you think Netanyahu would ever have signed this deal on his own?
No, and Netanyahu wanted this war to go on for as long as possible.
Under the October ceasefire, Israeli troops pulled back to agreed positions, and Israel celebrated the long-awaited release of hostages.
I couldn't be happier. The fact that finally hostages are coming back, that the deal was signed, that the war is over.
Gaza is a wasteland. More than 70,000 were killed during the war, according to the Ministry of Health, with more being found under rubble. Nadine Abdellatif, whose story we'd followed for years, remains inside Gaza.
How are you feeling now that this ceasefire is in place?
It does not feel like home at all. Nowhere feels like home.
She told me how she suffered bombings, starvation, and the loss of her brother, but holds on to hope to one day become a doctor. For Gaza and its 2 million people, neither the ceasefire nor the future is guaranteed.
This year, we saw a troubling trend, growing threats against political leaders. Perhaps nothing exemplified this more than the shocking assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. Stephanie Gosk looks at the rise of political violence in 2025.
On September 10th, an unthinkable act of political violence playing out before a crowd of 3,000. The brazen assassination of influential conservative activist Charlie Kirk as he was speaking on the campus of Utah Valley University. The 31-year-old CEO of Turning Point USA leaving behind his wife and 2 small children. The attack prompting an outcry over political violence in the U.S. We can return hate with hate. And that's the problem with political violence, is it metastasizes. The investigation revealed signs of a troubling new trend. Bullet casings inscribed with threatening messages, including one investigators say read, "Hey fascist, catch." The suspect is charged with aggravated murder and could face the death penalty. He has not yet entered a plea. Some data shows political violence is getting worse, with threats against public figures from both parties on the rise. Capitol Police telling NBC News its agents were on track to work through roughly 14,000 threat assessment cases this year alone, up 48% from 2024. Kirk's assassination follows attacks on other political leaders this year. On April 13th, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro was the target of an arson attack on his home.
It's especially hard to know that he tried to burn our family to death while we slept.
Security camera video shows a man breaking into the governor's mansion using Molotov cocktails to start the fire. The suspect later pleaded guilty. And 2 months later, on June 14th in Minnesota, Democratic state legislator Melissa Hortman and her husband gunned down in their home. Prosecutors say the suspect went on a planned rampage that started with shooting Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette at their home nearby. Authorities say the suspect had notebooks filled with names and addresses of over 45 Democratic lawmakers. The suspect has pleaded not guilty.
This was a grievous wound that Minnesota experienced. These are public servants that raised their hands and said they would serve, and they were just doing their job.
In the wake of Kirk's assassination, President Trump declared October 14th, Kirk's birthday, as a national day of remembrance and posthumously awarded him the Presidential Medal of Freedom. His widow, Erica Kirk, now taking over as CEO of Turning Point USA, saying at his memorial that she forgives his killer.
I forgive him because it was what Christ did and is what Charlie would do. The answer to hate is not hate.
And after the break, we're going to bring you the top story of 2025. We turn now to one of the year's most devastating natural disasters. In the overnight hours of July 4th, heavy rains caused the Guadalupe River to rise at a dangerous pace. Al Roker looks back at the deadly Texas tragedy and some of the heroes who responded.
In Texas Hill Country, many knew a storm was coming, but no one could possibly imagine a disaster like this. In the early morning hours of July 4th, the skies opened up and the deluge began. 4 months worth of rain falling in just a few hours, overwhelming the banks of the Guadalupe River, rising more than 30 feet in Kerrville and fast.
To have a river that's at 3 feet deep go to 32 feet in 1 hour. That's like a tsunami. That's like a dam break. That's almost like a storm surge from a hurricane.
All along the riverbanks, homes, RVs, and campsites full of people asleep, unaware of the nightmare unfolding outside.
It was apocalyptic.
One of the areas hardest hit, Camp Mystic, a girls' summer camp along the river. With power out and phones forbidden under camp rules, survivors say they awoke to cabins already flooding and teenage counselors doing everything they could to get themselves and their young charges to higher ground.
My daughter grabbed onto a tree. One by one, those girls came out and found anything they could cling to.
The waterline in what's left of some of those cabins shows just how the floodwaters rose. 25 young campers and 2 of their counselors losing their lives.
Seal would be in 3rd grade right now. But instead, she is lost in the Guadalupe River.
Seal Stewart is one of the 2 flooding victims still missing.
Every phone call, every text, your heart stops because you hope it's news that they found your child.
More than 130 people died across 6 Texas counties. But amid the utter devastation, the helpers, the heroes.
She was up in this tree, you know, way up there, 35 feet.
Like the Centerpoint volunteer firefighters who rescued this woman left clinging to a tree for hours after her car was washed away. Or the owner of the Hunt store giving away anything people needed, even after their store flooded. So today, lend a hand. Just had to thank them. Open it up, boys. Let's go. Let's see what you got for us. 10,000 shelf-stable meals, $25,000 worth of merchandise. People all across the country supporting Kerr County in the wake of a tragedy that changed so many lives forever. Al Roker, NBC News.
Another catastrophic disaster at the beginning of the year changed the landscape of Southern California forever, leaving scenes of apocalyptic destruction and causing heartbreak for thousands who saw their homes burned to the ground. Liz Kreutz revisits the ferocious LA wildfires.
This was Southern California on January 7th. 2 fires started burning on opposite sides of LA County. The Palisades Fire and Eaton Fire scorched homes and left devastation in their wake.
This is a tragedy.
I was on the ground on day 1.
We are in bumper-to-bumper traffic right now as hundreds of people try to get out. You can see flames here on both sides of the road with very little visibility.
Firefighters worked around the clock, battling more than just the flames.
Water pressure's been a big issue. We have had hydrants, dead hydrants.
One of the biggest challenges in the firefight, the hurricane-force Santa Ana winds. Even residents jumped in to try and save their neighborhoods.
I can't control any of this, but I can turn on a garden hose, you know.
Yeah, Scott definitely saved a lot.
What do you want to say to Scott?
I think he is a hero.
Despite tireless efforts, many people didn't have a home to return to.
We lost everything we owned, but it doesn't even look like a house anymore. It just looks like something.
For Brianna Navarro, the loss unimaginable. She says her 83-year-old grandmother, Arlene Kelly, died inside her home.
It's devastating. We didn't expect to lose her so tragically.
Some homes survived the flames.
I was shocked that it's still here.
But toxic ash from the fires means many residents still haven't been able to go home months later.
I mean, my community is pretty much gone. I am very grateful that the house is still there. However, from an insurance standpoint, I think it would have been easier if it had burned.
9 months after the fires, police arrested Jonathan Rinderknecht, the 29-year-old accused of starting the Palisades fire. Investigators determining that a different fire he ignited on New Year's Day never fully went out and would reignite a week later into the deadly inferno.
We will prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he intentionally started this fire.
Rinderknecht pleaded not guilty, and his lawyer said he's innocent. I did witness one bright spot in all the devastation. The reunion of Casey Colvin and his dog Oreo. Casey had one person he particularly wanted to thank.
This guy saved your life!
Cal Fire Battalion Chief Brent Pasqua.
When I first met you, I was in the middle of crisis. I was in the middle of a firestorm. My dogs would have died if not for you.
Now, in both the Palisades and Altadena, communities coming together to rebuild. A welcome sign of hope. Liz Kreutz, NBC News, Los Angeles.
And now to the top story of 2025. It has just been under a year since Donald Trump took the oath of office for a second time. And since then, we've witnessed a dramatic and transformational 12 months. Our senior Washington correspondent, Hallie Jackson, has a look back now at the first year of Trump 2.0.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
Starting on Inauguration Day, clear signs this Trump presidency would look different the second time around. Not just because weather forced the ceremony inside. On day one, a move to settle scores.
Approximately 1,500.
With the president pardoning or commuting the sentences of hundreds involved in the January 6th riot at the Capitol, and a show of force of executive action.
Could you imagine Biden doing this? I don't think so.
Among those day one executive orders, creating the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, led by Elon Musk. The president's new cabinet, one-time opponent Marco Rubio as Secretary of State, vaccine skeptic Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as Health Secretary, and former Fox News host Pete Hegseth at the Pentagon.
With the American media,
along with Vice President J.D. Vance, less a team of rivals than a group committed to advancing the Trump agenda. One of their first priorities, cracking down on illegal immigration.
We're getting these monsters out of the United States, out of Florida, out of all the places that they're in.
Hey, you guys good over there?
Government data reviewed by NBC News shows border crossings plummeted in the first year of the Trump presidency, with ICE arrests doubling. The administration's immigration policy sparking protests. In June, the president deploying the California National Guard to Los Angeles, the administration saying it was to protect federal property. California's Democratic leaders calling it a stunt. The National Guard later deployed to Washington, D.C., too.
We're not going to let it happen. We're not going to lose our cities over this. We're starting very strongly with D.C., and we're going to clean it up real quick.
Also on the president's agenda, trimming the federal workforce. Thousands of federal workers fired as part of those cuts, though hundreds would eventually be hired back, and DOGE itself was disbanded in November. And just as Musk's time at the White House was ending, a rift with President Trump over the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill.
The One Big Beautiful Bill to secure our borders, turbocharge our economy, and bring back the American dream.
Musk criticizing it as destructive. The president not happy.
Elon and I had a great relationship. I don't know if we're well anymore.
Musk firing back online. Time to drop the really big bomb. Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. Musk's tweet, part of the renewed interest in the case of Jeffrey Epstein, a one-time Trump friend and later convicted sex offender, accused of trafficking underage girls before he died by suicide in jail in 2019. President Trump has long denied any involvement with Epstein's crimes.
I have nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. I threw him out of my club many years ago because I thought he was a sick pervert. But And I guess I turned out to be right.
In November, after the longest government shutdown in American history, a bipartisan bid to try to force the release of the Epstein files succeeded, largely because of the support of several Republican women who split with President Trump, notably Marjorie Taylor Greene.
For the president to call me a traitor for standing with these women, I honestly don't really care what his opinion is. I know I did the right thing.
The White House itself evolving in the new Trump era, with concrete in the Rose Garden and construction of a new ballroom that led to destruction of the East Wing. In February, an Oval Office meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky turning confrontational.
You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people.
The president taking credit for helping the peace push in multiple other conflicts, most notably with the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas in October. At the same time, stepping up pressure on what the administration said were South American cartels using boats to bring drugs into the country, with the strike in September receiving renewed scrutiny weeks later when it was revealed 2 survivors were killed in a so-called double-tap attack.
And we will keep killing them so long as they are poisoning our people with narcotics.
That's tariffs.
One of the most notable days of the first year of Trump 2.0, April 2nd.
Liberation Day.
Or what the administration called Liberation Day, with sweeping tariffs announced against major trading partners.
April 2nd, 2025 will forever be remembered as the day American industry was reborn, the day America's destiny was reclaimed, and the day that we began to make America wealthy again.
But through November's off-year elections, the economy and affordability remained key issues. President Trump dismissing concerns.
Affordability is a hoax that was started by Democrats. You know, it's 10 months.
President Trump spending the waning days of this year touting what he described as a strong economy. But on that, voters will decide before those all-important midterms next November that could impact the rest of his presidency. Hallie Jackson, NBC News.
And before we go, we wanted to leave you with a look ahead to an exciting 2026 with what promises to be some of the biggest events of the decade. NBC Sports' Maria Taylor and Steve Kornacki have everything you need to know.
It has been a busy 2025, but now it is time to look ahead because NBC's lineup in 2026 is gearing up to be fascinating and absolutely historic, and nowhere will that be more evident than in the world of sports. So NBC will bring you some of the biggest sporting events ever, from Super Bowl 60 to the World Cup and more. To help me break all of that action down, we bring in Steve Kornacki and, of course, the big board. Steve, shall we start with legendary February?
Yeah, Maria. I mean, I don't know about you. February is the shortest month on the calendar. It always feels the longest to me in the dead of winter. It's going to feel a little different in 2026. We're going to start Friday, February 6th. That's going to be the opening ceremonies for the Milan Cortina Winter Olympics. And while we're still absorbing all of that excitement, 48 hours later, we got Super Sunday, the Super Bowl 60 in the Bay Area, and they're still going to be giving out medals in Italy when a week later, on Sunday, February 15th, the All-Star Game, the NBA All-Star Game, different format this year, kind of Olympic-themed, USA versus the world.
Yeah, it's following after the Milan Cortina Olympics. I love the idea. Let's get into the summer, though. There's plenty going on to start the year, but we're going to finish it well, too.
Well, July 4th, of course, marks the semi-quincentennial. I looked this one up. That's the 250th birthday of the United States of America. We are going to be televising. These are the tall ships. It's the biggest ever flotilla of tall ships coming into New York Harbor. Lady Liberty looking on my favorite tall ship, by the way, the Amerigo Vespucci from Italy.
That's my favorite too, Steve.
I think we both know one. It sounds like to continue celebrating America's birthday, July 5th, a Sunday. The national pastime, baseball's back on NBC. Every MLB game that day going to be on NBC or Peacock. And what else? What other big events going on in July?
No big deal. Something called the
World Cup. The U.S., Canada, Mexico are hosting July 19th. MetLife Stadium near New York will be the final. Big expectations for the good old USA in this one. Paraguay, Australia, the other teams in Group D. One European team. We still have to find out who it is. But the expectations are so high that one of the players for the U.S. says the goal is the semifinals. If the U.S. gets there, that's the deepest they've gone since 1930.
And that was the inaugural World Cup, Steve. So we'll see if they can pull it off this year. Thank you so much for breaking it down. And we hope you are looking forward to 2026 in the world of sports.
We hope you enjoyed this look at the top stories of 2025. Thanks so much for watching this special. I'm Tom Llamas. From all of us here at NBC News, we hope you have a safe and happy holiday, and wishing you the very best in 2026. We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.